Welcome back everyone, it is Mike from ManaHoarders. We are bringing you a commander deck tech for a Selesnya commander, Torens, Fist of the Angels. You can cast Torens. For 1, a green and a white, you get a 2/2 legendary human cleric with training. This means whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, it gets a 1/1 counter. Also, whenever you cast a creature spell, we create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training. The final price for this build came in at $107. In terms of power level, I would rate this build around a 6 or 7 out of 10 on the power scale. Our strategy is pretty straightforward, trying to capitalize as much as possible off of our commander's abilities. So we'll be creating tokens, we'll be putting +1/+1 counters on our creatures, and we'll be trying to gain as much benefit from doing both of those as possible. Now let's go ahead and dive into the deck. First up are our artifacts. Arcane Signet can tap to give us one color of our commander's color identity. Idol of Oblivion can tap to draw a card, and we can also sacrifice it to create a 10/10 Eldrazi creature token. Oketra's Monument makes our white creature spells cost 1 less, and whenever we cast a creature spell, we get a 1/1 white warrior creature token. Sol Ring taps for 2 colorless mana. Throne of the God Pharaoh, at the beginning of our end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures we control. Moving on to our creatures, we do have some legends helping out our commander. Adeline Resplendent Cathar, whenever she attacks, for each opponent we get a 1/1 white human creature token that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Hamza, Guardian of Erishin, costs 1 less to cast for each creature we control with a 1/1 counter on it, and creature spells we cast cost 1 less for each creature with a 1/1 counter. Karametra, God of Harvest, whenever we cast a creature spell we can search our library for a forest or plains, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Catilda, Dawnheart Prime has protection from werewolves and make it so humans we control can tap to add 1 mana of any of their colors. Kyler, Sigardian Emissary, whenever another human enters the battlefield under control gets a 1/1 counter, and other humans we control get +1/+1 for each counter on Kyler. Maya, Brettagard Protector, other creatures we control get +1/+1, and whenever we play a land, we'll get a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. Rishkar Pima Renegade, whenever it enters the battlefield, we can put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures, and each creature we control with a counter on it can tap to add a green. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, can't be countered, has indestructible, attacks each combat if able, and whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, we will draw a card. And for our not-so-legendary creatures, Abzan Falconer, each creature we control with a 1/1 counter has flying. Anointer Priest, whenever a creature token enters under our control, we gain a life. Armorcraft Judge, whenever it enters, we draw a card for each creature we control with a 1/1 counter. Beast Whisperer, whenever we cast a creature spell, we can draw a card. Champion of Lambhold, creatures with power less than Champion of Lambhold's power can't block creatures we control, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, it gets a 1/1 counter. Circle of Dreams Druid, we can tap it to add a green for each creature we control. Elvish Mystic taps for a green. Elvish Rejuvenator, whenever it enters the battlefield, we will look at the top 5 cards of our library, put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. And Raise Forerunners, the cheaper version of Crater of Behemoth. It has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. Whenever it enters the battlefield, other creatures we control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Trample. Fyndhorn Elves taps for a green. Good Fortune Unicorn, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, it gets a 1/1 counter. Guardian Augmenter, commander creatures we control have +2/+2 and they have hexproof. Hazda Marshal, whenever it attacks and at least 2 other creatures attack, we get a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. Hopeful Initiate has training, and we can pay 2 and a white, remove 2 +1/+1 counters from among other creatures we control to destroy target artifact or enchantment. Incubation Druid can tap to add some mana. Llanowar Elves taps for a green. Mentor of the Meek, whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under our control, we can pay 1, and if we do, we will draw a card. Militia Bugler, whenever it enters, we can look at the top 4 cards of our library, reveal a creature card with power 2 or less from among them and put it into our hand, and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Reclamation Sage, whenever it enters, we can destroy target artifact or enchantment. Regal Force, whenever it enters, we will draw a card for each green creature we control. And Soul Warden, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, we can gain a life. Moving on to our enchantments, Battle for Brettagard. The first 2 lore counters give us tokens, the last lore counter lets us double up any number of tokens that have different names. Colossal Majesty, at the beginning of our upkeep, if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, we can draw a card. Cryptolith Rite, creatures we control can tap to add 1 mana of any color. Growing Ranks, at the beginning of our upkeep, we will populate. In Search of Greatness, at the beginning of our upkeep, we may cast a permanent spell from our hand with converted mana cost equal to 1, plus the highest CMC from among other permanents we control without paying its cost, and if we don't, we can scry 1. Intangible Virtue gives creature tokens we control +1/+1 and Vigilance. Season of Growth, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we can scry 1. Song of the World Soul, whenever we cast a spell, we can populate. And Wild Growth makes it so the enchanted land taps for an additional green mana. For our instance, Blinding Fog will prevent all damage that will be dealt to creatures this turn, and creatures we control gain hexproof. Call the Coppercoats lets us make some 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Inspiring Call, we will draw a card for each creature we control with a 1/1 counter, and those creatures gain indestructible. Nature's Claim can destroy target artifact or enchantment, but its controller gains 4. Rite of Harmony, whenever a creature or enchantment enters the battlefield under our control this turn, we will draw a card. Rootborn Defenses, we can populate, and creatures we control gain indestructible. Sundering Growth can destroy target artifact or enchantment, and then we will populate. And Unbreakable Formation, creatures we control gain indestructible, but if we cast it during our main phase, they each get a 1/1 counter and gain Vigilance until end of turn. We will be including 2 Planeswalkers, Huatli Radiant Champion. She can get a loyalty counter for each creature we control, and her -8 ability, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we can draw a card. Vivian Champion of the Wilds, we included it mostly to give our creatures flash. For our sorceries, Adventure Awaits, it lets us dig for a creature card, and if we do not find one, it will allow us to draw a card. Camaraderie, we gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of creatures we control, and creatures we control get +1/+1. Celebrate the Harvest, we can search our library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of different powers from among creatures we control, then put them onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle. Collective Unconscience, we can draw a card for each creature we control. Cultivate helps us with some ramp. Field Trip, we can search our library for a basic forest card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle before we learn. Harmonize lets us draw 3. Harvest Season, we will put X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures we control, onto the battlefield tapped. Rampant Growth lets us search for a basic. Scale the Heights, we can put a +1/+1 counter up to 1 target creature, gain 2 life, play an additional land, and draw a card. And Shamanic Revelation, we can draw a card for each creature we control, and gain 4 life for each creature with power 4 or greater. And last but not least is our mana base. We are keeping things very basic with 20 basic forests and 15 basic plains. And just like that, we reached the end of this Commander Deck Tech. If you enjoyed this video for Torens, Fist of the Ancients, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment down below. Let us know what awesome commanders you would like to see us build around in the future. We really appreciate all of your support.